Yo, what up, guys? Welcome back. We're on the clock. I'm here with my good buddy Julian, and we're joined by a familiar face today. Maybe not to you guys, but now that we are a visual podcast as well, you may have seen him earlier on this summer when we were doing some all-time drafts. We have Quint Leale.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the intro. I'm the stats guy, the Zillow stats guy, as I like to call it. They found me online and in the trenches, and I've been able to give them data that they may or may not receive well. But now they're here to listen to my hot take.
Whether we use your data or not is one question. Whether we want to hear about what you have to say is another, and that's why you're here, Quint. I asked you to form together some hot takes. Obviously, it's NBA opening weekend. And whether those posted on Monday or Tuesday, we're kind of reacting to what went on this past weekend. But we have some hot takes from you about what's going to happen over the course of the season. So do you want to kind of introduce us, and kind of the floor is yours, Quint? This is your video essentially.
Sweet, absolutely. And I just want to say something about like opening week. It's easy to look at games that are happening right now and then just change your projections for the season. Like that's kind of our gut instinct. But what I look back to is what happened with the Boston Celtics and how they actually lost to my Knicks. That was our like highlight of the season. We beat the Celtics and they ended up, turning it around in the second half. So seeing teams like the Nuggets lose early, like as the Nuggets and the Nets lose early, I'm not putting too much weight on that. I'm excited to share these predictions, hot takes, call it whatever you want. I use stats here and there, but for the most part, it's just kind of intuition and just what I've been thinking. Also just the motto, just so you guys know, is triple doubles are cool. Big box numbers, they're cool, but efficiency and winning results, those are way cooler. That's my take on that. So now let's move on to number one. So this is going to interest you guys as people that are very interested in what's going on in the draft and player development. And so for Keegan Murray, what I've seen thus far from him is just I'm very shocked by him. So I made the stat called real points per game, which pretty much looks at how impactful a player is on the final score of the game, looking at their offense, not just shooting, but shooting, passing, ball security, and making the most of the opportunities given to you. Basically says how much you contribute to the team's margin of victory. So looking at all the draft prospects from last year, he ranked number one at plus 2.2 real points per game, leading his class. And then again in Summer League, he led his class 3.3 real points per game, which this is hard to kind of understand if you're not familiar with it. So I'll give you an example of Steph Curry, LeBron James, the peak versions of them, KD and Jokic. Those are like +4, +5 guys in the NBA season. And about like 90% of players fall between like plus or minus one of zero, which is the average across the league. So to see numbers pop off the sheet, like what he was doing in preseason too, plus 6.2, which was just insane. He was like 89% true shooting. And what this guy reminds me of is like MPJ, but healthy. And I feel like that's going to bode well for him developing into a KD type of player. And while I see guys like Banchero, who had a great performance to start off the year, while I see guys like that, him developing and having big numbers, I don't see his team doing jack shit, to be honest. I don't know if I could say that here, but I don't see the Magic really doing much. But my theory around Keegan Murray and the Kings is that he's going to be a really big contributor on that team. He might be the second or third option within that offense. And I see them breaking their dry spell and making the playoffs. And just the overlap between this Kings team with the 2002 Kings, 2003 Kings is very interesting. Having a great big man passer and having a bunch of shooters, fast-paced offense, like that sort of that pattern is same between the current Nuggets and current Kings. So I'm excited to see what happens with this. But I do think Paolo and Mathurin are going to do really well. Do you guys have opinions on the Rookie of the Year race?
So I'll start. I have a couple of interjections as to why I think there's zero chance Keegan Murray wins Rookie of the Year. Zero. I think he's going to be a very good player for Sacramento. Don't get me wrong. I think he will. This is honestly a great situation for him. I think he is a starter, but there's two main issues here. One, he's not the number 2 or number 3. He's the number 4 option on this team behind De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and Harrison Barnes. He
And
just is.
debatably Kevin Herter.
Nah, I'd say Mitchell probably as well is another player who's going to get a lot of touches as well. So he's the 4th option on that team. 2, Rookie of the Year is not a performance award for your team. It's an individual award. And I just think that guys like Banchero, Jaden Ivey is one that I think you didn't even mention, who I think is going to be a instrumental part of what the Pistons do this year. I think those are guys that are like clear number 1, clear number 2 options. We're going to get a lot more influence in the way that their teams operate on a more consistent basis than Keegan Murray. Again, I'm not trying to say that Keegan Murray is not going to have a very good season because I think that he will be a good shooter. I think he'll be a very good 3-and-D player for the Sacramento team. But I think that guys like Paolo and Jaden Ivey are going to be the guy. And I think that they're going to put up much better much more impactful statistical games and have much more impactful statistical seasons than Keegan Murray is. Caleb, what do you think?
I agree with some of your points, Julian, not all. I definitely agree with the point on that's not necessarily a team performance award. That's more geared towards an individual. And that's why I'd say, like, undoubtedly, I think Paulo's going to win because he's undeniably the number 1 option on that Magic team. I mean, they drafted him number 1 overall to be that guy. And I think that he's going to put up like 18, 7, and like 3 or 4. And I don't see Keegan Murray necessarily get in like a super crazy amount of minutes that I think we can expect Paolo to tack on. Like, I think Paolo is going to be a 30 minutes, around 30 minutes per game. And I think Keegan Murray may be more in the range of 24 to 27. Not that it's a huge difference. I think just that little bit of scoring, like tick that he'll get down. And then also the fact that you brought up about how, he may have been the number 1 option in the summer league in the preseason. Because he was undoubtedly the best player that was most of the time playing in some of those games that he was in. Not necessarily the preseason. I was really impressed with some of the shooting stuff. And as we've talked about, Quint, like, I'm high on Keegan Murray as a player. I think it was a great value pick for the Kings, and I don't disagree with the Sabonis helping him a lot. I don't know if he's like a Michael Porter Jr. or a Kevin Durant type of player. I think he's more geared towards like a Pascal Siakam, where he's hyper efficient in a lot of areas and can work kind of off a big like that very well. Maybe his jumper is probably a little bit further along than Pascal's was, but if you have any rebuttals, Quint.
Yeah, I know. I love what you guys said. I love that it differs, from what I'm going at here, because I know, like, with a hot take, it's going to be shocking, and like I totally don't. I understand why you guys.
I'd say this take is lukewarm. I don't think that it's that hot, but I like it. I'm with it. I'm with them.
So I'll elaborate for my rebuttal of the lukewarm take. So pretty much what I see in this guy is somebody that's like the modern version of Peja Stojakovic. And I think that they're like, although right now you guys might see him as lower on the rotation, in my opinion, I see him somewhere between he's gonna have similar, he's gonna be like the 2nd or 3rd guy in terms of touches. But I think that he's going to be a big part of why they're winning games, and his numbers will pop off the sheet, because there's a difference between a guy that's averaging like 20. Like I think no, I like that you guys mentioned Ivy, because I'm very high on him. I think Banchero, same sort of thing. I just don't see them. I think this can be a narrative award as well, and I see the Kings having a very much like comeback season for the franchise. And I just see him being like at the center of it because of his unique skill set, like that tall, that confident shooting off the dribble from all 3 levels. And I just see him progressing. Like, this is
an off the dribble shooter from 3.
I think he's the steal of the draft, in my opinion. And I also would like to echo that this is one of the best draft classes I've ever seen. And a part of this take is that this draft class specifically may line up a lot with like the 2003 draft class. Although we don't see, a LeBron James star, I think some of these guys, it's going to be a deep draft, and they will be in the NBA for a while. So, yeah, let's take one.
Sweet.
All right, bet. Should we move on?
Let's
Yeah.
move on.
That was good though. I like that. Okay, so this one, it's definitely a point of contention, but I do want to bring up players that I see as absolute risers for next year. And pretty much I'll say an all-star is a top 30 player. I would say top 30 player, and then all NBA is top 15 player. And I think all-stars are also reflected in the popularity of, an organization, of a player, of their play style. And some of these guys, like I would say Jordan Poole especially, is going to bring a stardom that gives him a leg over some of these small market guys like Sabonis. So for Poole specifically, it's an interesting situation what's going on in Golden State, which is why I've been back and forth about how I feel about Poole right now. He had a pretty bad showing in his first game versus the Lakers. Obviously, I think nerves can play a part, and similar with Scotty. But I see all these guys just developing exponentially through the season and into All-Star. For Poole, I feel like just as he's improving, Clay is kind of on the downhill. And I think that it would be a great move for the Warriors organization to give Poole more touches than Clay as the season progresses. And I think that the Warriors have a lot of depth, which makes me wonder if they're going to restrict him to a sixth man position or if they're going to start him. But my theory is that they're going to start him, and it might be one of the best offenses we've seen in a really long time. Not sure if they can start all three guys, but I see Jordan Poole progressing in a 20 plus points per game sort of range on insane efficiency, and kind of being that crossover between Clay and Curry that he's shown flashes of, in that Nuggets series, albeit he was playing against really weak perimeter defenders. His shot creation and confidence is just off the charts, and I feel like the Warriors were smart to pay him. I don't know how they're doing it with their imaginary salary cap, but yeah, that's Jordan Poole. Do you guys have thoughts on Jordan Poole?
He's on my fantasy team. I hope he does well. I don't know about the high efficiency on 20 points per game. He doesn't really, come across as an efficient player, especially with some of his shot selection that's really shaky for long stretches. I don't know. I like the idea of him being like an off-ball shooter more. I think that definitely the most elite version of him that you envision for sure with your kind of Curry Clay thing is more of a Clay, because I think undeniably the ball's still going to be in the hands of Curry, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. I think there's just too many mouths to feed on that team for him to be like a 20-point per game guy this next year, or an all-star for that matter. But I see the ceiling's definitely there with him. He's one of those guys that, when he gets it going, he's one of those shooters now that you just really have to watch. When he makes one, you better put it in his face before he takes the next one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I might be a little early on this take. This might be something that develops next season or the season after that.
I think it definitely will take a Clay or Draymond exit for him to take that leap. And I just don't see them really breaking up that main core. If anybody on that team gets traded right now, I think it's Draymond Green or Jordan Poole.
Fair game.
Would a certain punch in the face have anything to do with that, Caleb?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know how that was such a, I don't know.
That was a bizarre news cycle. Do you have any points about basketball? We're not a narrative network.
Yeah.
Sorry, the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah. All right, and Julian, feel free to add something about Jordan Poole, but if you want, I could just move on to the next prospect. Just, either way.
I have stuff to say about the other three.
Okay,
just keep going, Quint.
Okay, I'll go through the other three. So Scotty Barnes.
Then we'll react to all three of them at once. Just go through the rest.
That makes the most sense. I like this. So the other guys I have on here are Scotty Barnes, Desmond Bane, and Domantas Sabonis. I see Domantas Sabonis as a mini Jokic, if you will. And I think he's right now in a good situation playing along two budding offensive superstars. I think De'Aaron Fox, I'm not going to call him a superstar. Let's relax there. I think he's a good complement to Sabonis. And I think that Keegan Murray is a perfect complement to both of them. He's kind of the glue that will hold them together offensively, at least. because he unlocks so many things in transition. And Sabonis is one of the best big man passers we've ever seen. His dad was in the NBA, but ended up getting drafted and coming to the league years and years later, but was still an impact guy. Like he was in the Western Conference Finals playing in Shaq, and doing pretty well. So I see Sabonis kind of uplifting the Kings. Excited to see that. Desmond Bane, his game reminds me, he's like a light-skinned Klay Thompson, in my opinion. And no, seriously, you could book that, name that shit. But I see light-skinned Klay Thompson doing pretty well. I think that's a big part of what I think a big part of what the Grizzlies do is Jaren Jackson Jr. So his return will be a big factor in terms of if we see Bane do stuff in the playoffs, because I think he's just like that Klay Thompson build to perfection. He's a great defender. He's a great sniper, and he was arguably the best three-point shooter last year. So those are two guys. And the last thing about Scotty Barnes is his physicality, like his physicals and his mindset. Like he seems like a high character guy, at least from the outside. And he's in an organization in Toronto that has Nick Nurse, one of the best coaches, honestly, in the league. And I just see him similar to Poole, a guy that has to develop amongst a bunch of other similar players and has to, separate himself and take that next step. I think that he, at his peak, maybe 3 years from now, we'll see him kind of entering that, like, I know I say this a lot, Kawhi Leonard. He reminds me a lot of that guy because of his length, his ability to switch on a bunch of guys, high motor, plays two-way, and soon he'll be able to shot create. I saw Scotty was doing work over the summer, especially shooting. I think we're going to see improvements from that. And these are guys I think could creep into that all-star category.
Go ahead, Julian.
All right. So
one thing, Klay Thompson is also light-skinned.
That's exactly.
He's not white.
Klay Thompson is light-skinned.
My bad, technicality right there.
I honestly think Scotty Barnes could creep into the all-star conversation this year. Legitimately, if the Raptors are playing at a high level, if you think about it, there's not a lot of depth at forward in the East right now. Think about it. Like DeMar DeRozan, Giannis, Jimmy Butler,
Jason Tatum,
sure.
Durant.
Kevin Durant's got to stay healthy.
Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons is not. I would take
Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr., all these guys. I mean,
Wendell Carter Jr. is a center.
Running out of time.
Okay. I mean, Paolo Banchero, you really think is going to make the All-Star team as a rookie?
No, I'm just being facetious. Go ahead.
Okay. But I mean, so purely because of that lack of depth, I think that Scotty Barnes does have a chance to become a fringe All-Star this year, potentially next year, especially if Kevin Durant gets hurt.
Yeah, I'll make a quick point about Desmond Bane, and I think we should just move on to the next one. Yeah. I think we both agree on the Sabonis take, Jordan.
Yeah.
Like that is, we acknowledge that he's a really good player, and we hope he can do well. Desmond Bane, I like the Klay kind of comp. I do see a lot of like the tendencies in his game that are very similar to Klay, especially offensively off ball. If there's one thing so far that I definitely agree with is the Desmond Bane thing.
Yeah, appreciate
I hope he does. He has gotten an increase in volume of shots this year already, just in their first game, and he was their main guy in the playoffs, like shooting the ball.
Yeah, he was really impressive in that series versus Minnesota. I remember that was huge difference maker there. It was actually a lot of the takes of Poole and Bane overlap because their first rounds versus the Nuggets and T-Wolves respectively put them in like the top 10 for that moment in the first round during that playoffs, just offensively. So I've been high on them ever since because I saw that potential. And when we look at Poole was kind of neutralized by the Celtics defense because think about it. He's playing on the biggest stage of his life as a young guy, playing against arguably the best.
Number one defense the number one defense in the league.
Yeah, number one perimeter defense, maybe ever, maybe ever, at least in the modern era. So I think that once we see him play more like once we see him
Bad
play,
Boy Pistons and the '90s Bulls are calling your phone right now, and they're like,
that's totally
"Wait,
fine. That's totally fine, man. I don't think
Gary Payton's on the phone. He's calling."
I don't know who Bulls had at the 5, but Robert Williams is very different compared to those
Yeah, fair enough. Luke Longley's a G though, so
Yeah, okay. Credit to that. Also like a little break here because you can cut this out. We get like 7 minutes. Do you want me to do one more slide and then re-up?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my third hot take. This is going to be a point of contention. And frankly, I want this to be open discussion because I'm curious what he's going to do, and we're going to see a lot of what Kawhi is capable of tonight and progressing through the season. But I see Kawhi being in an MVP race. It might be the regular season MVP race, or he might be in line for Finals MVP. Because if he's getting to the Finals, I'm putting my money on Kawhi. And why I'm so high in him is just how amazing of a player he was in 2021, despite people not remembering him. He disappeared because he doesn't really have a social media profile. He's not going to leave impressions on people and really be in the discussion. ESPN's not going to feed into any narratives for him because why would they feed something that's not going to give back to their bottom line? So at least in 2021, the Clippers I think they were a top 3 team, and maybe their second or third year together. And Kawhi was absolutely amazing on offense. So looking at real points per game, and he's not a high volume guy where if you look at his box scores, you're gonna be like 25 points per game. That's not much. He's not jumping off the sheet like that. But he was one of the most efficient shooters, low turnover guys that you'll ever see. And his variety of shot creation throughout those playoffs and that year was incredible. He's one of the only guys that is keeping the mid-range alive right now, but doing it at an efficient level. It's really him and KD, and at times DeMar DeRozan that can hit efficiently at the mid-range. And this is great for late game situations where you need a guy to ISO and to find you a high quality shot. So Kawhi's ability to affect stars in both ends of the floor has always been something that I've loved about him and respected about him. And I feel like his humility comes from dunk and it comes from pop. And that sort of thing is why we always see his teams do so well. Obviously, throughout the regular season, he's been the winningest player, arguably, of all time. He's up there. It's like him and Draymond. What I don't think he's going to be at full speed, at least for the first few games, maybe the first 10 games of the season. But I think we'll see him creep up and maybe enter one of these conversations as the leader on a contending team or even an MVP. I think that he's had a lot of time to heal and work on himself. And I literally listened to his media day interview, and he didn't even sound like as much of a robot stiff as he did before. It's like he must have got some speech training or something, media training. Like he sounds like a full on human. It's crazy. Like he's like a new player. And so I feel like if you combine that with he realizes now the value of being on the floor and how he's not always going to have that opportunity. Now is a time. He's peaking athletically, peaking in skill, and people are sleeping. That's totally fine. But he literally had the third best offensive season of recent years. Looking at so I'm excited for him, and I think the Clippers, man, they're just built to win. So yeah, you guys can say whatever you want.
I take this one.
2 words,
please.
I'm gonna start an my argument with 2 words: load management.
0% chance he wins the MVP.
That's all I have to say.
0% chance. I think there's probably a better chance that he doesn't qualify for the award because he doesn't play enough games than there is to him playing enough games to even qualify it. I'd rather bet on how many games he's going to play than him winning MVP. I think the point that you make for the Finals MVP is a great point because I think that anytime you're talking about a guy who's on one of the most talented and deepest teams in the league, You can bring him up for the Finals MVP conversation.
I think he'll be.
Kawhi's a great player. We
race.
know.
I don't think he's gonna win it because narrative and just like the load management thing.
Oh,
but
there's there's just 0% chance he's going to win it because he's not going to play enough.
Yeah.
And like your point about
him
seeing how important it is to be on the court, he probably should have seen that 3 years ago after they won a championship with him playing 60 plus games. So on the Raptors, like if he saw the value in playing a lot of games and winning MVPs, he would have done it already. He's Kawhi. He's going to do what he does. He's not going to play back to backs. He's going to take a game off here and there when he doesn't want to play. And when it gets down to the playoffs, like you just got to hope that he stays on the court and that he stays healthy. Like that's the biggest thing with Kawhi. It's been the biggest thing for the last like 4 or 5 years to like the last half decade with him, since he left the Spurs really, and even before then.
I think the season is a good opportunity for some of these narratives to change. And I will say, I don't think he's going to win the MVP, but I think he'll be in the race. That's what I should have phrased it. I think he's going to be an all
Well,
NBA.
it's not an MVP race. I just think like he's not going to qualify for the MVP race.
I think that my top 3 in the MVP race top 4 going to the season, Doncic, Giannis, Embiid, and Ja.
Giannis, Luka, Jokic. That's it. Only guys that can win it in my eyes.
I don't think Embiid has a chance at it.
They better win 55 plus games.
Oh, Jokic too. Yeah. Did I not say Jokic?
Yeah, honestly, like this like MVP hot take thing could have gone the Kawhi route or the Zion route. I see those as 2 guys that are in like that, like they're hiding as like borderline all NBA first level players, at least this year, because I think their teams are gonna be incredible, and I think we'll see a lot of improvement from them.
Zion has a much better chance of winning MVP.
I was just gonna say I would be more on board if you would put Zion in here. I think Zion has if Zion does what Zion can do and the Pelicans win 60-65 games, Zion could steal it.
Oh yeah, very, very well. Yeah, It takes okay, wait. All right, moving on to the next take. Let's look at this.
Oh, we got a little preview.
Moving on to the next take, we got okay, so I guess everybody has a different definition for dark horse and contender. I've always seen contenders as being a top 6 team in the league. 95% of the top ranked plus minus net rating teams win championships. Like 95% of champions are top 6, 85% of finals appearances are top 6. So I see it as you got to be a top 3 seed in your conference to really be a contender. It's pretty good at predicting that. So these are the teams that I see as very much borderline for that top 3 in their conference, as they might be able to steal a spot, knock off a contender, maybe even reach the conference finals if things go right. It's going to take a lot. But the most obvious one to me would be the Pelicans. We saw, this might be some recency, but we saw what they did to the Nets. Their in and out game was just insane. Like not even in this picture. Trey Murphy has been going absolutely nuts from 3.
Yeah, I wonder who likes Trey Murphy, Mero.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good. You're on Team Murphy. Well, anyways, he was really impressive.
What do you mean? I'm the Team Murphy.
Team Murphy. Okay.
I'm the president. I've been Team Murphy.
He's the president of the TM3 fan club.
Talking to the president of the club. Wow. But
clear, you don't need to talk to me about Trey Murphy.
Fair enough. So the other players in the Pelicans, I'm very high in Zion Williamson. Although he wasn't super impressive in his first game back, I think that he's one of the most unique players that I've seen. He reminds me a lot of Charles Barkley. And I think whether it's like the off court gaining weight to actually his play style of being like an undersized center big that just plays so much bigger than he actually is. His ability to rebound off of his own misses to basically fight for everything at the rim is second to none right now. Honestly, the most recent comparison to a guy that can affect the paint would be Shaq.
Ben Wallace. More Ben Wallace, but
no, Ben Wallace is averaging 10 points a game. This guy's averaging 27 per game as a second-year player. So seeing him the resurgence of. Well, I'll say this is last year I was surprised with how much of a fight these Pelicans put up in the first round against a Suns team that I thought would just roll past them, a 4-game sweep. It was really close. And now that they're getting Zion back and the other players around them are maturing, they're building a team culture. CJ has been a great leader thus far. It's a very seamless transition from the Trailblazers to this team. I like BI's game a lot. He improved a lot. Like you can just see, like he had that from Twitter, not from me. He had the homeless Dr. J kind of look in the offseason, and a lot of people are like, he's going to pop off this year, and that's what he's done from the jump. I see him and Zion just being one of the best offensive duos just across the league. I feel like their offense is going to be top 5, and I feel like Herbert Jones is going to do a great job of neutralizing the top team's opposing threat. I saw how he was guarding Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. And those are 2 great isolation scores. He was doing a great job yesterday. Kyrie had actually, by the numbers, the worst. He had the second worst offensive performance of the season opener thus far. He lost the Nets about 8 points by being a 6 of 19 shooter and turning over the ball, not really creating much in terms of playmaking. That was primarily Herbert Jones, being there, getting under his skin, making his presence felt. That's something we're going to see throughout the year. I think the Pelicans will be a top 3-ish, 4-ish team in the West. But that's where they can get. There's a lot of questions with all these teams, but yeah. What do you guys think about the Pelicans?
You just want to do your other 2, and then we can give you all of our
Okay,
reactions.
bet. So with the other 2, I like the team culture of the Raptors. I feel like Nick Nurse is going to make. Nick Nurse has a plan, and his coordination with their GM and basically getting players that like they're very switchable players. That like they have the physicals to basically guard anybody and switch and to be a defensive monster when they all like reach their primes and grow into themselves. But also some of these guys like Scotty Barnes, Siakam, Fred VanVleet, like if they were playing on a really bad team, they could be probably 25, 30 points per game scores if they wanted to. But since they're playing within the system, I feel like everybody's buying in, and I see this team being shocking somebody. I can see them shocking somebody. And like their sort of culture reminds me a lot of the Cavaliers, who also have a very young team. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are probably the best defensive front court I can think of. And to have an elite offensive backcourt and Garland and Mitchell, I think that combination is going to be enough to shock the world. And although like that, I feel like as a fan within like the NBA news cycle, we're like, we've had enough of the Cavs. We already had LeBron going to the finals with them too many times. Like, I don't really need to see another Cleveland this, Cleveland that. Like, cool, whatever. Like, I've seen too much of the small market team, but I feel like they're going to be one of those teams to push one of these top contenders in the East to 7 games, maybe even a conference finals if all things go right.
Go ahead, Julian.
All right. So for those of you who listen to our appearances on 2 pointers, y'all will know I'm a big believer in the Pelicans. Huge. So I honestly am with you. I don't even dark horse contenders this year. I don't think that they will be dark horse contenders come next season. I think that the Pelicans are easily a team that can get to 55 or 60 wins. The Raptors, I am really not sure about. I just Fred VanVleet to me is not a good number 1 option. Pascal Siakam and like they have a cast of good players, sure, but in the playoffs, when it comes down to it, the other teams that they play against, any of the top 5 teams in the East, maybe even top 6 or 7, will have the best player on the court.
And they'll be more talented. They'll have more guys that like depth wise.
I think
Yeah.
they're waiting for a star to come out of Toronto, and I feel like Scotty is going to be that guy to emerge as that.
Scotty Barnes is
Oh,
not going to outplay Giannis, Embiid, Jimmy
Rose.
Butler, Kevin Durant, Trey Young,
DeMar DeRozan.
Donovan Mitchell, DeMar DeRozan. None of those. I'm sorry. Scotty Barnes is a very good NBA player right now. He is not ready to outperform any of those guys in a playoff series.
And
yet. Not even
offense.
close.
I can you want to give your last take on the Cavs and then I'll go.
Cavs, I like the Cavs, and I think that they're not quite there yet. I think they're probably a 4 or 5 seed. I think they're a second round exit this year.
Sweet.
That's about it. That's the Raptors are the only one who I really am like shaking my head at that they are nowhere near top 3 seed for me.
I love the Pelicans and Cavs pick, very similar to Julian. I agree with 100% of the things that you said about the Pelicans, especially the Trey Murphy stuff. I think that their team is so deep and they have so many versatile players. Like you talked about Herb Jones. Zion can really play the 4 or the 5 or the 3, and they can really throw some fancy and interesting matchups out there. They have so many guys that can initiate the offense. It's really hard to stop them on any given night. I think that, in my opinion, the Pelicans shouldn't be dark horse contenders to a lot of people if they truly like understand what they've been building over the last couple of years and then watch the playoffs last year. They're a team that's, like Julian said, could win 50 to 60 games. I think they definitely have the highest, in my opinion, they're the most likely team to take that Suns leap into like the stratosphere of being the best regular season team in the league. But I could see them having problems in the playoffs when they run against the Warriors or somebody like that, or the Suns again. I still think there's some matchup issues. Guys need maturing. I'm not sure if I think Zion's a more consistent 3-ball away from being a top 5 player in the league.
I like that Zion 3-ball take. I do think that why they actually should be defined as a dark horse is because of how poor, like how average they were, or even like sort of below average last season. Like it's very rare that you'll see a team that's ranked 20th in net rating even make the playoffs, or even like next.
If you watch them play, like if you
Can I
watch
speak to that
play,
though?
if you watch
No,
them
'cause
play, you get it. Like you understand how
I
there aren't many teams to make that transition from like a 18th ranked team to a 6th ranked team. So that's why I consider them dark horse, regardless of what people think.
well my thing on to counter that is the reason that they're probably so low in your net rating is because they started the season off 1-14.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh wow. Okay. More
And
now.
then
Yeah,
Right
they
in the
were
end,
they were the worst team in the league through 20 games of the NBA season.
Yeah. The Raptors take and the Cavs take is kind of similar. I just see them on different tiers of that. I think the Raptors are a playing team at their ceiling in the regular season. They're just not very deep at all. They really have 6 guys on their roster that are quality rotation players on any other team. That's their starters and Precious Achua, if in case you were wondering. Nobody else on that team really deserves minutes on any other team in the league. I just think they're going to find late in the year. Injuries do happen. They have no wing depth, and they have no guard depth. I mean, if Malachi Flynn is your third guard off your bench, I mean, I love the Gary Trent. Gary Trent was a great ad a couple years ago, I believe, or was it this past offseason? I believe he played for them last year as well.
He played for them last year,
and he had a great year last year. I think he'll continue to improve. I love his fit with them coming over from the Trailblazers. OG Anunoby is going to continue to be a dynamic player, and I think he'll get slightly better. I like OG taking that step and possibly being a leader on that team better than Scotty this season, especially offensively.
I think all very similar. I just feel like the amount of investment and like the very obvious, like
they just have 6 players that are good basketball players. Like I'm just I mean, nobody is like Bo Cruz is great, but he's not like he was in the movie. Like it's real life. And I'm sorry, Juancho Hernan Gomez isn't making people quake in their sleep. Like they're going to lose to teams like the 76ers. They're going to lose to the Bulls. They're going to lose to the Bucks. They're going to lose to the Cavs. They're going to lose to teams like the Knicks here and there. Teams that just have better scorers that can explode for those 30-point games. I think they're a very well-built team. They are truly a superstar away from being a contender, and I agree with that. I just think they need more depth and a superstar player, not just one of their guys needs to be a superstar player.
I see what you're
Let me
saying.
finish my rebuttal with the other one, and then you can talk.
Okay, bet.
The Cavs, I think we talked about this over the summer. I think the Cavs are a 50-win team this year. With their depth and the roster composition, I think they're very poised to be a really good regular season team. I think they're going to get absolutely stomped in the playoffs in the first round, and we'll see them next year. And they're going to be a team that's going to be around for a couple years with Mobley, Allen, and Garland. I'm not a big believer in Mitchell. I think he's just one of those guys that's an offensive player. And is really always going to be a liability on defense just because of his size, very similar to Trae Young. It is what it is. They're probably another like really good backcourt piece away from making a push. If Okoro can be that guy and their closing lineups can have Okoro in it and they're playing well with LeVert and Garland, Okoro, Mobley, and Allen, like I see that being their best closing lineup possibility. That team shoots well, and Kevin Love's shooting well, like off the bench. They could be really good, but I just don't see it in the playoffs for them.
No, I like for the most part what you're saying about those two teams. I guess like my thing about the Raptors is I see like for a team to win in the playoffs, they need to have a quote unquote superstar. And those sort of guys, we see them as the players that can create their own shot or have a few qualities that they can use that are just above the rest of anybody else, something they specialize in. And for Scotty, we haven't necessarily seen that yet. What I think that, his defense is great. I think that he can develop his shot creation. Maybe I'm a little early with this. Maybe next year.
He can't shoot yet. Like that's the thing. Is he has a good handle. He just does not have a consistent jump shot yet. And you can't skip, like you can't be a shot creator and like a guy who can create your own shot without being able to shoot first.
With that being said, I think that is shooting
a consistent shot. What?
I think that his shooting will improve. But like from what I've seen, like he was doing some behind the scenes work with shooting wise with this organization that like literally brings science into learning shooting mechanics. And it's something that a program that Nick Nurse has got a bunch of Raptors on. So I could see Scotty taking that leap shooting wise. And I feel like that opens up so much for everybody else.
Yeah, you just don't turn into like a 20%. You don't turn into like a 35% shooter from being a 20% shooter in 1 year. I think he's 2 years away.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the uncertainty about who the guy is in that team is something that's going to dissuade people from picking them early to do much. And I agree with the Mitchell thing. I honestly don't feel like Donovan Mitchell was that great of an ad, although he did play really well in his debut for the team and seems to be meshing with the culture right now. I want to see him play with Garland more, and I want to see how those touches and that sort of relationship works itself out. Because they're both high volume guys.
I like the pairing. I think Garland is like really underrated.
Absolutely, yeah. He's very much.
One more thing about the Scotty thing, and then I think we should move on. To your credit, I mean, he's a really efficient player, and if they do put the ball in his hands a lot, I think his upside as a creator is really high. And if that's how they utilize him as like a Draymond role, then I think that is like the odds of him becoming like a guy who you talk about as a superstar caliber player is more likely this next year is if he's playing a Draymond Green type of role. Like I know you're so locked onto the Kawhi comparison, but like there's like a really good chance that he just ends up being a Draymond Green type of player and never turns into that scorer because that's just not how he plays. Like that's not how he's ever played.
You're saying like a marginally better, like
he's never been a score first guy is my point.
Like more like a thing. Like a more likable, better scorer version of Ben Simmons.
Not really. I mean, I think he's just he's himself. Like he's Scotty Barnes. And I think he's cut from the cloth of the Draymond Green type of defensive stopper / can be a primary, secondary creator, not a scorer. So, but
I like the team in transition. I feel like they're just a speedy, athletic team that's going to contain good teams that usually take advantage in transition, and they're going to also punish teams that are slow-footed.
Yeah, they're just going to get abused in the half court, bro. Pascal Siakam's not a center.
Yeah, his bag is very interesting though. He does these like crazy spin hooks. Like,
he's a super talented offensive player. Like, it's uber talented.
Yeah, Julian, what you got?
I think we've stretched it out enough. Let's hear the last take, man.
Yeah, absolutely. last take. We got a little bonus at the end, but so this is something that goes bigger than just players. It's more about what the NBA is looking for as a league. And I think that the NBA is in a unique position right now to gain international followers, to become a sport similar to soccer. Obviously not to that level. It's something that takes time, but they have a leg up over other American sports like baseball and football, in my opinion, in terms of becoming a worldwide sport. And the start of that right now is the fact that 3 of the 5 best players in basketball in the world are international. Actually, you could say 4 because Joel Embiid. But what I see is it depends upon how the NBA wants to brand this. I do see these 3 players, Jokic, Giannis, Jokic, Giannis, and Luka running into each other at some point in the playoffs. I'd be interested to see if this develops into like a Bird Magic sort of rivalry where they're like, I mean, I would say Jokic and Giannis are clearly the best players in the NBA. And now that Jokic kind of has his boys back, albeit I'm not sure how they're going to do back from injury. If they progress over the season, having Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back is going to be
You know,
huge.
we are pumped up about Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Jamal
Yeah.
Murray.
Best player on their
Arguably
team.
the best Nugget of all time, arguably. Like honestly, if he was there, he probably would have had MVP.
Yeah, I mean, in your eyes, since Jokic is a top 10 player all time, that puts Jamal Murray in the same conversation, right?
Man, if we're looking at skills and actually impacts, I don't know. It's all-time rankings are very much based on accolades and how many points you total up to. It's not really about how good you were at your peak. And we're yet to see the peaks for Giannis and Jokic. So it's always interesting.
I think we're seeing it right now. They both have just traded off back-to-back MVPs.
I mean, they're 25.
What?
They're 20. They are both like 25, 26. I
Both
think
like 27, 28. Jokic is like probably 28, 29.
Actually, no, I think they're both 27. But yeah, anyways, they're still young. They still have.
Luka's super young. Can I respond to this? Because I think it's very simple. They already had this rivalry just a couple years ago, and I just think, like, I'm not a narratives guy. Like, I hate narratives. I just would rather just watch basketball and judge people off who the ball going in the hoop or not. Like, I don't really like all the extra stuff. I'd say that, like, in terms of rivalries in the current NBA, like, players are too friendly with each other for those really to exist. And it's very rare when we see those guys go back and forth. And it's very rarely guys that are facing off against each other consistently in high level games. Like the fact that we just had Curry and LeBron go back and forth for like literally 7 years over championships. And I think that if anything, that was the Bird and Magic rivalry, LeBron and Curry. And it's kind of ironic because Bird was a shooter and Magic was a playmaker. Curry's a shooter and LeBron's a playmaker. I said several years ago that was the current Bird and Magic rivalry. I should think that your point about the global game is very valuable to recognize. I think a lot of people are seeing how much the game's growing overseas, especially with international prospects like Victor Wembanyama and guys of that ilk coming out of basically, we're seeing guys now from 15 years old on overseas instead of where we're just finding out about them when they're finally ready to come over to America. I mean, I don't know. I think the NBA is so far removed from this, even having these type of rivalries. I'd say the closest thing we have to a rivalry right now in the NBA is Luka versus Devin Booker. I think just with the memeing that happens on both sides of that Twitter is really the only place where rivalries can really circulate nowadays.
I kind of see that as a rivalry that's going to exist to figure out who's going to lose to Jokic and the Nuggets in the conference finals or another Western Conference team.
Yeah, I mean, the last time Jokic faced the Suns, the last 2 times Jokic has faced the Suns, though, do you know how many games he's won? In playoffs, do you know how many games he's won?
He won 0, yeah. Well, I mean, Jokic is one player.
In 8 games.
This is a team sport, and I think that getting your
did lose to them though 4 games with Murray averaging 20 plus points per game though.
You're saying that's your theory that they lose?
Oh, he did already once.
Okay, well, I guess sort of what I'm getting at here is I think that Jokic and Giannis are clearly the 2 best players in basketball, and I see that they have some tools around them. They're on contending teams. I could see I could just see this being a finals matchup. Doesn't necessarily have to be next. I think that it will mirror like the Bird Magic, Curry, LeBron sort of thing, because these are I see Jokic and Giannis as just the two best players for the next 5 years, unless somebody else rises through the ranks. Maybe
That
Wembanyama.
perspective, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's like the
Where I
next
lost them at.
Kahwi.
Maybe I lose them all. Maybe I just keep staying forward.
There we go. There we go.
I was jumping Drake bar. Sorry, I just.
Yeah, but Julian, what you think about these players?
I mean, I think that honestly, that these guys are the two best players in the NBA. They're the three best players in the NBA. But I don't think there's gonna be any sort of dynastic battle over the next 5 years. I think there's so much talent spread amongst teams in the NBA right now that I don't think we're gonna see another 10-year period where there's the same two or three teams competing for championships every year.
I just think that era is gone. Like that age of basketball is kind of past now.
Yeah, and I think that like for the rivalries I think there's going to be rivalries within conferences because I think that you're going to see some of the same players, battling it out year in year out when it gets to the second round in conference
New
championship.
York. I mean, stuff like that.
But it's kind of a crapshoot now, man. Like I really could see 8 to 10 teams this year that could very easily go all the way, and I don't see that changing. At the rate that players are staying loyal to their teams, at the rate of guys resigning, at the current structure of a lot of the contracts of the superstars in the NBA right now, unless there's big trades going on, I don't really see a lot of shakeups coming.
Yeah, there's no real super teams in the league, and I think that that's the biggest thing that you have to differentiate about Bird, Magic, and LeBron and Curry is all four of those players were on super teams. Bird was on a team with Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson. I mean, I could go on and name that whole roster. Bill Walton, he played with so many all-stars during those championship runs, and then the same thing on the other side. Magic was playing with the best player in basketball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could look at similar things for Curry. Curry played with Kevin Durant. LeBron played with obviously Kyrie, Wade, and all those guys.
I would say super teams are very much associated with free agency decisions, which we can't foresee at this time. It's
Julian made a great point that there just isn't many coming in the future. Like
I mean,
a lot of the guys that are 26 to 30 right now are strapped up for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can I name off some guys that have just signed long-term deals recently?
I mean, yeah, you can go ahead.
Jokic just signed a 5-year deal. Giannis just signed a 5-year deal. Doncic just signed a 5-year deal. John Morant, De'Aaron Fox, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris is probably going to be a free agent in a couple of years, but he's not really a superstar. Bradley Beal just inked a 5-year deal. Zion Williamson.
There was like 10 super maxes given out over the summer.
I mean, all these guys have to be traded because they're locked down for like 4 or 5 years on massive contracts.
Yeah. I think we got the point across with there's going to be no dynasties really.
Yeah, I'll say to follow.
Unless the Warriors, I made a point in our podcast with 2 pointers earlier today. I'm not sure when that's going up, but refer to that if you're curious. That the Warriors are really the only team that has dynasty upside still. I think it's just because they're so young and they're still so good. Some of these teams are really talented. It's just like.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a shifting over the next few years. I think that there is very much like a KD sort of free agency. There's like that KD and LeBron free agency era where they're just because of circumstances like players joining up. There's this huge talent differentials across the board. I feel like just the players across the world and like the draft classes are better than ever. I feel like this is the point where like the stars that we grew up watching, it's kind of like they're fading and it's hard to accept that. Like I think a guy like Westbrook is so obvious he's out of it. He probably shouldn't even be in the league, to be honest.
He's still like a good player, bro. You can't
the second I saw him check into that Lakers game, I'm like, dang, okay, wow, the Lakers are gonna lose. Pretty much Harden, I feel like, is next because he relied on a very specific play style. He doesn't really get to the rim anymore. I think that KD
Wait. Can you go back what you said about Harden? I'm sorry.
I don't think Harden really gets to the rim anymore at the rate where he was able to be a real threat.
Can I interject on that? Just
We keep interjecting. This is going to be like an hour and 20-minute podcast.
James Harden is averaging 30 points per game in his first 2 games, so he's not washed.
Chris Paul is probably washed, but I
honestly haven't checked
get
the
your
series.
point, Quint, but it still doesn't change the fact that like there was just like 8 guys that are all 25 to 28 that just signed super maxes.
Yeah, I don't know. I
You're
think
signed a
they're-
super max. Doncic signed a super max. Giannis, Jokic, he named most of them. He just didn't name Booker out of disrespect. But I mean, like guys are getting paid and they're staying.
I also feel like there are some circumstances that we can't like really predict at this point. Like there will be
course.
reasons for a player, a star player
And
to
who
leave.
knows who the Thunder and the Jazz are going to draft with all their picks? Like they could build like I mean if the Thunder get Wembanyama, I mean we may only be talking about Oklahoma City for the next 10 years.
I think the future of player movement and free agency is definitely an interesting topic that relates to this. But yeah, those were
I think teams are investing more in the draft now because they found out it's way smarter to build through the draft than it is through free agency.
Yeah, and these are just little bonus ones. I'm very much on the team where I think this is the Lakers' last dance with LeBron. I don't really see him. I just don't know how they can make it work because as currently constructed with a guy that's absorbing $40 million of salary that could be going to bench depth or better starting point guard, it's kind of like a black hole for the team. Not really sure if Anthony Davis will be healthy, although if he is healthy, that could be the game changer they need. I feel like their chemistry is at all-time low. The West is catching up. The world's catching up. I don't think we're in the LeBron era anymore, although it might be hard to accept that. I think we haven't been in that era since maybe 2018.
He averaged 30 points per game last year. I mean, it may have been empty numbers, but he still put up 30 a game.
Okay, so let's see if he can do that again and then actually win, because that is the true testament. You could put up.
I think nobody believes
playing-
they're actually going to win, though.
I mean, when you're playing backups and have to like come back, at home all the time, against these like kind of like washed teams, like it's kind of like those points are just weighted differently than a team that's pushing for wins.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I'm just
I also think it's going to be one of the greatest rookie draft classes of all time. Just the players that you guys know, like this is your class to like, you're going to see as they grow, as you guys grow in NBA media, through that sort of thing.
This was our my rookie class.
Yeah,
my rookie scouting class.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any, I guess specific, specific rookies that you like, sleepers that you like, I'm curious.
I mean, I could name 30. Just depends on how much more time we want to waste. Do you have anything else you want to point out, and then we can talk about some rookies that we're excited about?
Yeah, the only 2 other points is I think the Kings are going to break their playoff drought this year. I think that Brooklyn is kind of walking on eggshells right now. They're either going to be a clear-cut contender in 25 games, or they're going to be moving somebody, and which may shake up the playoffs depending if Kyrie or KD, somebody leaves.
They can't rebuild. They don't have their own picks.
Okay, well, they're gonna have to restart.
Yeah,
maybe, but
Brooklyn's good at restarting. We've seen it. I'm not. They're fine. I don't really have anything to say about either of that. The Kings will probably break their playoff streak. I think there's so many bad teams in the West that they'll be in the play-in, even if they don't try for 30 games to start the year. I would say, some rookies I'm excited about. Unless you had another point about Brooklyn, I just don't want to hear about Brooklyn.
No, I want to hear about your rookie predictions for next year, and then we'll call it the
pod. Well, I'd say that the guys I'm most excited about are probably like top 5 guys. Say Tari Eason for Houston.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Dalen Terry for Chicago. Jaden Hardy for Dallas. I'm really excited to see what Shaedon Sharpe is able to do in Portland once he finally gets on the court and is playing consistent minutes. And then Jalen Duren. I think, I don't want to bring up any of the 4 that you named there because we already kind of touched on those guys like Ivy and Mathurin. I think Mathurin's probably going to be one of the better guys from this class, top
He
3.
looked amazing in his first game.
But
he's
yeah, he was really good. I just expect that stuff out of him. Like I just expect him to be a 20-point scorer.
I'm surprised, but you know about it.
What?
I was surprised to see Mathurin do so well, but I'm guessing you kind of.
That was my expectation, to be honest. He's a scorer, so.
I have 2 guys to add to that. So one that you're probably going to be surprised, Caleb. I'm going to go with Usman Jang. He's going to get some tick this year. I think he's going to play really well. Same with Jalen Williams.
You hated this guy when we first started scouting him.
Who?
Usman Jang.
The first time I saw him, yes. And then when I watched more film and went back, I started to become an Usman Jang fan.
It's the defense for me. I think he could be really good defensively.
It's the playmaking for me. 6'11" playmaker.
Wow.
And another guy that I've always been super high on, he's going to get a ton of minutes this year, Walker Kessler.
I was about no words as you said it.
What?
I knew it was Walker Kessler.
Yeah.
That's my fantasy guy, so speak good of him quickly.
He's going to rack up the blocks. He's going to rack up blocks. He's going to rack up boards. Catch a few lobs per game.
You know what team Walker Kessler plays for, Quint? Who he play for?
Who he play for?
Jazz?
Damn straight.
Should we play who he play for quick?
Yeah, y'all want to expose my lack of rookie knowledge? Go for it.
Who does Kenny Lofton Jr. play for?
Grizzlies.
Good shit.
All right. Ty Washington, who he play for?
Free agency?
No, Rockets.
Oh, that's a disgusting pick.
Who he play for?
I won't be ready for this.
Who he play for? Jake LaRavia.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, boss.
Grizzlies. He's a
Memphis Grizzlies.
He'll be a starter, by the way.
Memphis Grizzlies.
Wait. Who he play for? Vince Williams Jr.
Give me some.
Memphis Grizzlies.
Did he make the team?
Yeah, he did. Who he played for? Kennedy Chandler.
No.
Who he played for? Kennedy Chandler.
Oh, I've heard that, but I don't know.
Memphis Grizzlies.
Stop naming great. No. Who he play for? Dyson Daniels. Who he play for?
Oh, Dyson Daniels. Wait. I feel like I know this.
He's a top 10 pick. Picked 8th.
Dyson Daniels.
Honestly, I only pay attention to guys I thought were going to do like really well from the like.
He's an international guy or an ignited.
Did he play?
How do I feel like he played? Okay, I'm gonna be wrong.
Last night?
No, you can't have 2.
Let me see if he played last night. I'm pretty sure at some point.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like,
Pelicans.
Yeah.
New Orleans Pelicans. Dyson Daniels.
Nice. Also,
he played 3 minutes last night.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. That quizzing is fun. I just gotta say, thanks for having me on this pod. It was fun giving my hot takes. They were coming off very, very hot. I just kind of thought of them today. So I definitely want to do more segments like this. This is dope.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for
Pleasure having you on, man.
Yeah,
we shall see you around.
Stuff. Plug anything you got going on. We'll possibly be releasing an article of yours along with this video. Then go check that out on theclockbb.com. The link will be somewhere below us on this screen. Anything else you want to plug, Quint?
Yeah, well, I'll be releasing articles. I'm trying to, if you want to follow at House of Stats on TikTok. We kind of like House of Highlights, but we actually give context to NBA moments and really look at it from as much of an unbiased perspective as we can offer. And I'm hoping I can tell stories through data. I'm just looking forward to producing some content this year. We got an exciting one ahead of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be one of the most exciting NBA seasons in recent history, in my opinion. And with that, we're off the clock.